Good evening,
everybody, and welcome. It's Cause of Unknown. Sorry, go on.
No. So we have a bit of a big announcement for those who don't know. I don't know how anyone wouldn't know by now anyway, but
I think there might be a couple in the chat that don't know.
Yes, possibly. So it's been under wraps for about 3 to 4 weeks.
Yes.
So me and Deborah and 3 other people.
Yes.
Who some of you might know, some might not know, so I'm not going to name them. But we have got a really big opportunity where we will be recording, or we'll be filming a new paranormal TV series for Amazon Prime.
Yes.
And that'll be airing spring next year.
Yeah, around about spring, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be recording 6 episodes.
Yes.
In a couple of weeks. And we cannot wait.
No, we can't wait.
It's going to be absolutely amazing.
Fantastic. We're going to be TV stars.
Oh. Yeah, so, well, I don't know about that.
Well, sort of.
Yeah, so that's our update news. And that's another reason why we've decided to close the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Because there's just too much going on at once, and we can't be doing this, that, and everything else all at the same time. But
that music's too loud.
Yeah, is it? It doesn't matter. So moving on from that, we are now going to go into the show. Yes. And we have the wonderful Kathleen Marden joining us.
We do.
So see you guys after the break.
Yay.
See you in 2.
Bye. Oh. Andy's got his mute on.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Right, I'll try again.
Yes.
So we're joined by Kathleen Marden, who's a researcher, author, on-camera expert, and conference presenter. She's widely considered one of the leading UFO contact researchers of our time. Since 1990, she has researched the perplexing nature of UFOs and non-human entities associated with highly advanced aerial vehicles via her own groundbreaking research, investigation, and experimentation. So thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. Yeah. I'd like to kick off with the first question then.
Okay.
What so fascinated you about your aunt and uncles? Because your aunt and uncle were obviously Betty and Barney Hill, the first sort of reported UFO abductees. What fascinated you so much about their story that you made you devote your life to it?
Well, my aunt and uncle were just highly credible individuals. They had no interest in UFOs. My uncle didn't believe that any other planets could possibly be inhabited.
Yeah.
And I was 13 years old when it happened, very impressionable age. My Aunt Betty was on the telephone with my mother on the afternoon when I arrived home from school. And it was the night of the same day that they had this experience. So it was very fresh in Betty's mind. And she called my mother to tell my mother what happened. I heard it. It was just so shocking in a way, because that very same day, my mother told me that back in the 1950s, when she was going grocery shopping with another aunt on a Friday night, which they always did, she and my aunt had an encounter. They weren't abducted, but they had an encounter with a very large craft, cigar-shaped craft, with smaller disc-shaped craft that flew around it. And it was a multiple witness sighting because they had gone to a neighbor's house, and the people who lived in that house went out and saw the craft as well. So, all of that combined led to my initial knowledge of what had occurred. Then within a couple of days, my father drove myself, my mother, and my two brothers to Betty's and Barney's home. And then I, with my own ears, heard what they had to say. And also, do I need to stop?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right. And then Betty took us out to see the shiny spots on the trunk of her car that had not been there the day before. They were all the size, maybe about that size, and completely circular and highly polished. And when she placed a compass over the spots, the needle would spin, indicating that there was a magnetic field in that area. There was no battery in the trunk or anything. It did not do that on other parts of the car, only on, you call it a boot? Do you call it a boot?
Yeah, on the back.
Car? Yes.
Yes.
So it was a 1957 Chevy, and those spots were there. There was physical evidence. And so I was highly curious because I was a scientific child. I wanted to be a scientist. And so I immediately became involved and interested. And Betty and Barney were close family members. I saw them at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. And so I cared a lot about them, but and also about the very frightful experience that my uncle had, because he had memories of standing in a field in upstate New Hampshire and observing the craft as it hovered about between 50 and 100 feet off the ground and about the same distance away. and he observed non-humans on that craft. It's in all of the original reports, and he was told that to my father that day that we were there. So this was not recovered through hypnosis for the first time. And, so I guess everything combined to cause me to become very, very interested in this topic and to want to learn more about it.
It's amazing.
Did it affect you much with you being so young? I know you said you was really inquisitive and it's like exciting for you, but did it affect you in any negative ways?
The only thing negative that occurred is Betty was doing, when I was 16, 17 years old, 18, Betty was doing experiments with a team of scientists attempting to call in craft. And they would give her the words to say, and she would go out onto her back porch every night at 9 o'clock. And she would send these messages, into the universe for these entities to go to a certain area and land, and they would be received. And so one did land on my grandparents' farm in 1966.
Wow.
There were 2 people who saw it going in for a landing. There was physical trace evidence on the ground as well that was investigated. But what my mother and I never stated was that we were taken to that craft that night. And that was a terrifying experience. It stayed with me for many, many years until through sheer force of will, through the use of hypnosis and post hypnotic suggestions to myself, I overcame that fear.
Yeah. So you remember what happened to you while you were at the craft then?
I always had some memories of that.
Yeah.
I had the memories of being on a table, memories of these entities standing next to the table. I knew they were not human. In a powerful abreaction, release of emotion. Maybe 20 years later, I finally remembered their faces. I always had a mental block to that. And then under hypnosis later, I was able to remember why they were taking tissue samples from me. And they said that the reason for this was that they were checking me for toxicity, environmental toxicity in my body.
Right.
I couldn't understand that until I started to think about where I lived when I was a child. I didn't know it at the time, but there was a chemical dump very close to where I lived, within a half mile or so. And I was downhill from there, and it ended up becoming a Superfund site that had to be cleaned up by the federal government.
Right.
Also, I was within 20 miles of a nuclear base.
Right.
Yeah. So they would have thought you were contaminated then.
They were checking me for contamination. Yes.
Wow. Sorry, my light's a bit bright.
Yeah. So was they checking you for contamination to look after you, or was it another agenda?
I think that it was their concern about our failure to be good stewards to our environment and the impact that it was having not only on us, but on all animals and plants. And I think back to acid rain. From the coal plants that were, it was going into the atmosphere and traveling over the Northeast where I was living at the time in New Hampshire, and depositing into the lakes and streams. We were having deformed frogs, for example, frogs with 3 legs or 5 legs, all sorts of strange things occurring. And at the same time, when I was a child, we were having above ground nuclear testing out in the western part of the United States. But that The fallout from that testing was going up into our clouds and then traveling across the United States, depositing with rain down on our grass, and the cows were then eating the grass.
Right. Yeah.
And as a result, we were drinking the milk. Fortunately, I didn't drink milk. I didn't like it. I only drink it if it was chocolate. So I don't have a thyroid problem, but many, many people that I know who grew up in that area do have thyroid problems or have developed thyroid cancer.
Shocking.
Very interesting.
It is very interesting.
Yeah, just like the way the beings went round, like the way they was doing it.
Yeah.
So one question. So do you think your uncle and aunt, the night that they had this encounter, do you think it was meant to be them who had this encounter, or was they just happened to be in that place at that time?
No, I could not give a definitive answer on that, but I have worked on 3 major studies on about 5,000 experiencers.
Wow.
And what we have discovered is that more than half of experiencers are taken, far more than that, like 80% of experiencers are taken for the first time before they're 20 years old. And most have more than one experience. So I suspect that this has run in my family going back for maybe 2 or 3 generations.
Yeah, I was going to say that earlier. It seems to be the maternal side as well, from what I've found.
Yeah, I found that it's about equal in our studies.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's either male or female children of the experiencer, and in our study, half were male and half were female.
That's interesting, yeah, because I've only ever heard of it happening on the female side.
Yes, we thought that, from so many people in the past, male researchers, and the females flocked to them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a female researcher, and many, many males have flocked to me.
Yeah.
So, maybe men feel more comfortable with a woman and women feel more comfortable with a man.
Yeah.
I'm not certain about that, but
it seems that way, doesn't it?
Yes, could be.
So what would you say is the most troubling abduction report you've ever heard?
Oh, well, this was a report from a man in Texas. And if you're familiar with the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, okay, this was a case that was very similar to this. This man was a retired commercial pilot.
Right.
And he, in his retirement, had decided to buy an airport, small airport in Texas, and he and his wife moved out to the airport. They had an apartment near the hangar, just attached to the hangar, actually.
Yeah.
And they were going to build a house. And so he was in his living room one night, and he heard people outside, and he thought, well, he was miles from anything. There was, it abutted Native American land. There was forest land everywhere. And he was more of in an industrial area of the town.
Right.
So he looked to see who was outside. He thought it might be kids who were out there drinking and were going to vandalize the airport.
Yeah.
He went outside, and it was adults. And there were 5 or 6 of them, and they were looking up into the air. And he said, "What are you doing here?" They pointed and they said, "That's a UFO." And he looked up, and there were 2 of them there. And he said, "It's the brightest light, the most intense light he had ever seen." And here is a pilot who can identify anything in the sky.
Yeah.
And so he had absolutely no interest in this topic prior to this, but after he saw it with his own eyes, he thought that he would like to talk with the pilots of that craft.
Right.
And so he tried a number of experiments to call craft in. And finally, he was successful. He knew absolutely nothing about the topic. He opened himself up to whatever came.
Yeah.
And they did come in, and they landed on his property. He saw them close up, and then they started taking him.
Right.
Oh.
And that is what really frightened him. And in response to that, he decided that he was going to use rage and anger and weapons to drive them away. And when he used this rage and anger and hatred, he brought in negative interdimensional entities.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And so then he was troubled by these negative interdimensionals who attached to him and made him ill. He had his shirt off one day working in his office, and some claws just raked down his skin. It was so deep that it took about a month to heal.
Wow.
So there were many negative things going on. And he ended up leaving that airport, losing everything just to get away from there.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was probably the worst case I've ever worked on, because I couldn't help him.
No.
Really, I tried to help him. I had a minister who was all ready to try to remove the negative part of it.
Yeah.
But he was rushed to the hospital when that was happening.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I know it's a bit different, isn't it, to like say a haunting or whatever, and a detachment from that, because you could get an exorcist in and get it removed. But with anything sort of extraterrestrial, it's completely different, isn't it? So there's no way of knowing how to deal with it, get rid of it, or they just seem to come and take you at will.
I don't think the negative entities were extraterrestrials. I think there were extraterrestrials involved. I suspect that an interdimensional portal opened.
Right.
And then when he focused on hatred, on anger toward them, it lowered his vibration. And when you lower your vibration, these lower negative entities can attach to you.
Yes.
They're attracted. They feed off you. And that's what made him ill, is that they were feeding off his rage and growing.
Yeah.
So it was a very unfortunate case. I would never want to have anyone have that experience.
No.
I've worked with other people since then. And on my website, I have a couple of articles on how to unattach these negative attachments.
Right.
Oh, cool.
It's at Kathleen-Marden.com.
Yeah, I'll add it into the description, or if Joe Weeks, who does the modding, if she wants to put it up, then we'll see it in the chat. Thank you for that. We have got quite a few questions for you.
Okay.
So are we okay to go to them?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll start with the first one. This is from Sharon Lomax. So I'm guessing this is about your uncle and aunt. Did the events hinder their careers?
It did not hinder their careers. In fact, Barney received a transfer that he wanted, and Betty became a supervisor in the welfare department in New Hampshire. She was a social worker for the state. And Barney worked for the U.S. Post Office.
Yeah.
So that at that time, it didn't impact their careers, but it did impact their activities. They were very active in the community and in the state. My uncle Barney was Black, and he had been appointed to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission on the state advisory committee for the state of New Hampshire. And so his appointment was not renewed.
Right.
When the story ended up becoming public, they never intended to go public with this story. They were going to keep it completely private.
Yeah.
They told the family members, and we were sworn to secrecy.
Yeah.
They told friends, and they were sworn to secrecy. They talked to military officers and their minister about this, but there was a violation of confidentiality that carried that news to a Boston newspaper. And there were articles for a period of 5 days on their experience. And it even gave their address and telephone number.
Oh.
So that made it extraordinarily difficult for Betty and Barney.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose once that's out, you can't, there's no hiding, is there? You're in the light whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Yes. And, you know, I found out that newspaper article traveled around the world.
Yeah.
I found an Australian newspaper that carried those articles.
Really?
Yes.
Jeez.
It's mad.
That's bad. Well, that what you've just answered with will lead us to this next question. So this is again from Sharon. Did they not get warned about speaking about what happened?
Barney felt that the ETs had warned him not to speak about it. That he always feared that if he spoke about it, that he would be harmed in some way.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think I seriously doubt that they threatened to harm him because they were so kind. I mean, of course, he and Betty were terrified, but they kept reassuring them that they wouldn't be harmed, that they only had to do a few simple tests. And they were apologetic toward the end, that they knew that they had frightened them, and they were sorry for this.
Yeah.
Right.
Next question is again from Sharon. Were they watched by government departments after things calmed down?
They were. Yes. When I was a college student, Barney died from a massive cerebral hemorrhage. He was only 46 years old. Wow. And this was in 1969.
Yeah.
And they had been assisting me with my housing while I went to college.
Yeah.
And so I ended up moving in with Betty. It was only about a 20-minute drive from the college. And I drove Barney's vehicle to the college. And one day I was home from school and studying. Betty, of course, was working. It was about noon or 1 in the afternoon. And I heard what I thought was Betty coming into the house. And so I ran up the stairs to greet her. We always left our doors between us unlocked. And she wasn't there. And so I thought, oh, I guess she must have just stopped in to pick something up and left again.
Yeah.
So I went back downstairs, and suddenly I heard boom, crash, feet running down the hallway. I ran up the stairs as quickly as I could. The front door to her apartment was open. The closet door was open, and her baseball bat was lying on the floor. It's a good thing I didn't open that door.
Yeah.
You've gotten it on my head. The front door to the apartment house was open. She owned this house that she had divided into apartments. Her gate was open, and there was a man in a brown suit running up the street. This was no common burglar. Weird things were being done in Betty's house. She did not publicize this. We didn't say anything about it until I captured the Betty and Barney Hill UFO experience that I've just recently updated.
Yeah.
Right.
So I saw this with my own eyes. Other things were happening. And one day before I moved there, all of the coats were removed from the closet and piled on the living room floor with a scarf over.
Right.
Right.
One day, chairs were arranged in a circle, dining room chairs, in a circle in the living room. So there were a number of just really odd things that were done, I think, just to freak Betty out, which
Right.
was incredibly cruel, and no one intelligence agency should ever engage in threatening behavior toward people who have had these experiences.
No.
You know, it's bad enough that people are terrified and often traumatized by these events, but when you have the additional trauma laid on top of that,
Yeah.
it's by humans, it's intolerable.
It's like psychological warfare, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
is psychological warfare.
Yeah.
Yes.
Their way of controlling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or trying to keep control.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, it's not right.
No, it's not.
No. Right. Another question. Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Right. So this one's from Nickname. Had Betty and Barney had any previous encounters or unusual experiences before the prominent event?
Not that they could remember.
Right.
Let me
Okay.
put it that way. They did not remember a previous event. They thought that this was opportunistic, that they just happened to be driving down the highway during the off season in a very lightly populated part of New Hampshire, and that they had gotten out of the car, left the headlights on, and the car doors open as they looked at this craft, and they thought they had just attracted attention.
Right.
Right. It is. It's because sorry, but I've listened to loads of reports on different podcasts about this, and it's just so fascinating. I know, obviously, it's terrible, like the stuff that went on.
Yeah.
Because didn't Betty she started off having really lucid dreams, like they was real, and then that's why then she ended up going for regression.
Betty had 5 dreams. They began 10 days after the experience.
Yeah.
They happened in the morning just before she woke up. Took me years to find an answer to the questions I had about these dreams. And what I discovered is that when just before you wake up in the morning, you're in a hypnotic state.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you, at that time, can have dreams that have precisely what did occur. But mixed in with that would be just fantasy, because you're attempting to work through your terror or your anxiety, whatever it is.
Trauma, yeah.
So it makes sense, because I did a comparative analysis of Betty's statements and Barney's statements under hypnosis. I transcribed all of the hypnosis tapes and then lined them up sentence by sentence. And then I compared them to Betty's dreams that she had written in a 5-page report. And what I discovered is that, yes, Betty's dreams are a combination of fantasy and reality, because her dreams are not consistent with her statements under hypnosis, not entirely consistent. But she and Barney have consistent information that is not in her dreams.
Right, yeah.
It's all encaptured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO experience, where I go through all of this. And I didn't do it in a boring way. I wrote it telling an interesting story and showing where it didn't hold up. So if you purchase the book, you're not going to be bored.
No, definitely not.
That's now on my list.
Yeah.
I have a list.
I'll be on Amazon later ordering it.
Me too.
But like I said, I've listened to so many different podcasts with just people telling the story and the events and that, and it's just with like like the time that it happened? Like, was it? Do you say it was the late 50s,
It
early
happened
60s?
in 1961, September 19, and into the early morning hours of September 20th, 1961, in upstate New Hampshire.
Yeah, and didn't they lose a couple of hours' time as well? Or
Yes, they did.
And they ended up miles away from where they couldn't have physically drove that distance in that time. Is that
Yes.
correct?
If they had physically driven that distance, it was only 30 to 35 miles. They would have arrived far earlier than they
Right.
did.
Yeah.
They were apparently on the craft for a couple of hours, and then their car was deposited, I think, back on the road.
Yeah.
Right.
And because they found themselves, after they heard a series of buzzing sounds striking the trunk of their vehicle, it caused a tingling sensation to pass through their bodies and caused the car to vibrate.
Right.
And those buzzing sounds were precisely in the area on the trunk or the boot of the car where they heard the buzzing sounds. So, and where the shiny circles were that had a magnetic field.
Yeah.
So that I'm even wondering if maybe the craft had picked up their car that night and carried it and put it down, instead of having them drive that distance, because it was about 8 miles. I can't imagine a craft having them just drive the 8 miles.
Yeah.
But, that's my speculation. It's not what they remembered under hypnosis. They did, but they were very confused at that point under hypnosis. So, then they found themselves on a dirt road, tall trees all around, a roadblock. This is something they always remembered.
Yeah.
In fact, they started going up to that area to find that dirt road over and over again before they ever went for hypnosis.
Yeah.
But they didn't find the abduction site until after hypnosis
Right.
was completed.
Yeah.
Didn't Betty give a map of the stars where they said that they came from, the aliens?
Yes, Dr. Simon, during hypnosis, was asking Betty, well, what happened next? And after her physical examination, she said to the leader she'd become comfortable with him because she experienced pain when the examiner had inserted a needle into her navel. And the leader did something that removed her pain.
Right.
And so she decided that she could trust him.
Yeah.
And she said, I know you're not from around here. Where is your home port? And so he did something to the wall, and he brought out this 3-dimensional star chart kind of thing. It was rectangular.
Yeah.
And it was like looking out a window, she said. And on it were several stars. There were 2 in the foreground that were about the size of nickels. If you know what a US nickel looks like.
Yeah.
About like that.
Yeah.
And then they were connected by 5 solid lines. And then there were other stars that went out in different directions, some connected by solid lines, some connected by dotted lines. And so she was made to understand that the solid lines were trade routes and the dotted lines were expeditions.
Right.
Right.
And so Dr. Simon said to Betty, if you can draw this map, if you feel comfortable with this, and you can do it accurately, go home and sketch the map for me and then bring it back when I see you again.
Yeah.
And so she did. And it was published in the first book that was ever written about Betty and Barney's experience. You'll also see it in Captured.
Yeah.
But Marjorie Fish, who was a brilliant woman from Ohio and an amateur astronomer, saw Betty's map, and she was curious. She thought that if this place actually existed in our galactic neighborhood, then maybe she would be able to find it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at first she thought she might find many, but after 3 years of constructing star map models out of a frame with monofilament line and beads, and having to go to the university and take out, she couldn't take out the astronomical catalogs. She had to sit and hand copy all the distance data and all of the characteristics of all of the stars in our local galactic neighborhood out 54 light years from our sun in every direction.
Wow.
After 3 years, she still didn't have a match. She had 14 models that she'd built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she was frustrated. She was like, I just can't find it. I've looked everywhere. And then a new astronomical catalog was published, and it had better distance data because we had advanced in our technology. So we could get more accurate data. And she took that new data and she found a match. The important thing about the stars on Betty's map is that all of the stars on Betty's map are sun-like stars, even though only 5% of the stars in our local galactic neighborhood out 54 light years are sun-like. So that was quite extraordinary. And they're all in a plane. So that makes travel from one star to another a lot easier because you're just going in a plane instead of here and there and here and there.
Yeah. It's more direct.
In fact, one of the astronomers who vetted Marjorie's work stated that if we were living on Zeta Reticuli, which were the two base planets, Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, if we were living there and we had developed the technology to explore our local galactic neighborhood, those are precisely the star systems that we would go to.
Right.
So it was anything but coincidence.
Yeah. It's just amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing.
It's so fascinating.
Right. Another question we've got from Sharon is, after the event, did your aunt and uncle ever come up with an answer to the question, why us?
They didn't come up with a definitive answer to the question, why them? That's part of the reason I think that I've spent my life searching for these answers.
Yeah.
Why are humans being taken? What is this program? That sort of thing. But Betty and Barney, no, they thought that they were just taken as an opportunistic abduction. But I have to tell you that when Betty was being escorted back to the car, Barney was taken back first. That wasn't in Betty's dream. But under hypnosis, Barney was taken first and Betty was then taken down. And Betty invited the leader to come back. He was escorting her. And she said, I know you're not from around here, but do you think you could come back? If you could come back, maybe I could arrange a meeting for you to meet with scientists or military officers. Those are my words, but people, he said, people who know more than I know. And the leader said to her, I don't know for certain. Maybe I can, but it's not my decision to make. And Betty said, well, how would you find me if you decide to come back? And he said, we can always find those that we're looking for. So that makes me wonder, were they looking for her?
Yeah.
Did they know where to find her? And she just happened to be driving down the highway with Barney at the wheel in the middle of the night on that particular night.
Yeah. Astonishing.
It is. Definitely is. Right. Next question is from Ancient Ruby. Why was you all not one to talk or discuss the incidents when many of us today are? Thank you.
Why was I warned not to talk about?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah.
incidents. I was.
Yeah.
I've been warned. I've been told that I was frightening people, and I said,
Yeah.
"Fine, fine. I will be very, very careful." But I'm going to talk about this. I'm a major researcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
and I had never told anyone until recently about the experience I had when I was 17, when I
Right.
was taken to craft.
Yeah.
So yes, I've been
Tell us
warned.
about that.
My phone has been tapped.
Right.
I've been cut off from shows after I wrote the book, The Alien Abduction Files with Denise Stoner.
Yeah.
We had things that happened and threats, but I ignore it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I simply ignore it, and I make it public. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
this isn't something I'm not going to be fearful and hide away. And I'm not going to keep that kind of information to myself. I
No.
want everyone to know that this happened.
Yeah.
So it won't be a threat. If something happens to me, everyone
Yeah.
will know why.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So what was your experience when you were 17 then?
Well, that's the one I talked about earlier, where Betty was calling in craft.
Ah, yes. Sorry, yes.
Attempting to have them land on my grandparents' farm.
What we'd call CE5 now, I suppose.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
And one did land, and my mother and I were taken to craft. I wonder how long my mother had been taken,
Yeah.
because when I was, I guess I was in my early teens. As I talked earlier about her going grocery shopping on Friday nights.
Yeah.
She would always leave at the same time. She would always arrive home at the same time. My father would be at home with my two brothers and myself. And on this particular night, she didn't come home.
Right.
And my father sent us to bed, and we couldn't sleep. We were so worried about my
Yeah.
mother. He was
Yeah.
worried. He was ready to call the police when she finally did show up. She had no idea that she was a couple of hours late.
No.
And they carried the groceries in. She had bought frozen food, ice cream, and ice cream was like soup.
Yeah.
And but no idea about the time differential. So
No.
I suspect that she was taken that night, but it was seamless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just didn't remember it.
So do you think she was like the other night she was going like this the same day every week when she's going grocery shopping? Do you think she was going meeting them, or she was being visited by them?
Well, on that particular night, yes.
What the
Yes,
ones
I think
previous to that though? Do you think there was any contact before
I'm not
that
sure.
point?
I don't know about the earlier one.
Right.
That happened back in about 1957.
Right. Okay.
I don't know about that.
Right.
I mean, if they were taken, there would have been probably 5 people taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were definitely showing an interest in my mother, I believe, for that mothership to come in so close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was fairly close to where we lived, maybe a mile away, if that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty close.
The missing time thing really does worry me quite a lot, because it, like you say, it's almost like they don't realise it's happened. Everything's kind of been normal for them, and it's only when you turn up somewhere and somebody says, "Where the hell have you been?" that this is what I keep reading, that these people are just completely unaware of losing 5 hours, or it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, some people have lost days.
Yeah.
But the most prevalent time is 2 hours, according to our studies. But some are 3, 4, 5 hours, and some, as I said, could be up to 5 days, like Travis Walton, for example.
Yeah.
And there have been others who have told me that they were missing for 4 or 5 days.
It's just so worrying.
I know.
It is.
Yes.
It is. So can I just ask, have you had any MIB encounters personally?
I personally have not. No.
No. Okay.
What do you think they are? Where do you think they come from?
That's really difficult for me to answer. Denise Stoner, whom I mentioned, is we've worked together for quite a long time. I initially investigated her case. She is Florida MUFON state director.
Right.
And also she's the director of MUFON's experiencer resource team. I was the director, she's the assistant director. And she was my assistant when I was director.
Right.
But now she's the assistant director. So if you can figure out what I'm saying. Anyway, she and I, we've had a close relationship for quite a long time. And I've done several hypnosis sessions with her. And she did have an MIB experience. Part of it she remembered, where she was in a mall. And there was this very, very strange experience that happened in the mall, and it was near closing time, and there were 2 women MIBs in
that's unusual
that she encountered, and a very strange looking baby in a baby carriage too.
Right.
And she has had another MIB experience with someone actually going to the door of her home.
Right.
But she had an experience with her husband where she remembered the 2 of them were taken, and they were taken to a coastal area of Florida. And she was taken into, it was like a hangar. And inside that hangar, she saw what she described as being like a wheel with segments cut out of that wheel. And in each of those segments was an MIB.
Right.
So that's hypnotically retrieved. I can't say that that's a true memory. Sometimes people can confabulate under hypnosis. And there's no way to verify that that is a real memory and not a fantasy. But anyway.
It's a bit of a strange fantasy, though, isn't it? Because if you're going to sort of recall a memory like that, you would think they'd be stood in a group in a corner or something, not like segmented off in a...
Like waiting to turn around and come out.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be a very strange hypnotic memory. I've never had anyone who remembered something like that, in hypnosis. And there were also women in black in another one.
See, I've never heard of that at all. That's really surprised me.
And they were just inanimate at that time. They hadn't apparently been activated.
Yeah.
So very strange.
Yeah. Very, very strange.
Very, yeah.
Right. Question from Umbra Man. What's Kathleen's ideal outcome from her research? What answers does she want the most?
The answers I want the most is, how long have they been here? Why are they here? How many different groups of them are here working together? And what is their agenda with humans? Now, I've gotten answers because I've been looking for them, but it was answers from people who channeled the information from the ETs. One, and I wrote about this in Forbidden Knowledge, my latest book. So in Forbidden Knowledge, I write about a government study that ended up being, it was a secret study. The only reason I have that information is that a granddaughter of a Navy admiral gave me a packet of information at a conference that she attended. She knew that I was looking for information on this man because my aunt and uncle, Betty and Barney Hill, knew him.
Yes.
Right.
And he had worked with them. And so this information in this packet confirmed that he and Wilbert Smith from the Canadian government, who was a brilliant engineer and the government's Canadian government's UFO guy, and this admiral who was a rear admiral actually, but we called him Admiral Knowles, were
Yeah.
working with a woman who was, you might say, channeling. She wasn't a channeler, but these ETs just started coming to her and giving her information, and she was writing down all of the information that she was receiving.
Right.
Sometimes the entity would materialize in front of her, and the information was extraordinarily interesting. And I found that the federal government was interested in this. Dwight Eisenhower was involved in this, Margaret Chase Smith, the CIA, the FBI. All the information is in that book, and all the messages that were received.
Right.
That gave me the desire to work with another man, myself. So we assembled a team of researchers, and we met with this man once a month for a period of 2 years.
Right.
We continue to meet with him, but only 2 or 3 times a year now.
Yeah.
But we had the opportunity to acquire evidence that these ETs were there. It wasn't a figment of his imagination.
Yeah.
And to ask whatever questions we wanted. We were each allotted 3 or 4 questions for each meeting. And I put 120 of those questions and the answers we received in that new book, Forbidden Knowledge. So it's just fascinating information that we received. But the general gist of all of it is that the ETs are saying that they've been here for a very long time.
Yeah.
That they come back from time to time to assist in our development. That when they came back, well, in the mid 20th century, a little bit before that, they found that we had developed nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And that the nuclear weapons are extraordinarily dangerous. They say that they've warned all the governments about this, but the governments haven't listened to them. And of course, they shut down the nuclear armaments, in facilities all along the U.S. and Canadian border, and in the old USSR and in Russia today. So they have given their warnings. They say that they mean no harm, but they say there are groups that they try to keep under control who don't really care about humans.
Yes.
They just feel like they own this planet and they'll take what they want. So it's not all good, but most of them are benevolent, they say.
Yeah.
And on and on and on. There's a tremendous amount of information, specific answers to our questions. And we were able to feel their presence, to measure their presence with a laser thermometer.
Right.
Because when they came into the room, the temperature increased between 5.5 and 8 degrees.
Wow.
Right.
In the area of the room where they were standing.
Yeah.
And they were able to show us other things, such as orbs. For me, I learned to communicate with gray scientists. And he communicated with me telepathically. I could feel his presence, a very strong tingling sensation in the body when he came to see me. And he even caused the water on the lake that I live on to swirl in a circle. Very, very
cool.
Yeah. So, he showed us quite a few things, and he did this for each one of us who were involved in this experiment. So, that was very gratifying. 2 of those entities were ninth dimensionals.
Right.
And they no longer have bodies. They told us that the difference between the dimensions is only the rate of vibration.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So the ninth dimensionals, they're the higher vibrating ones. And one of those is a healer. And so she has come when we've asked for healing and healed us as well.
Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed my relationship with these.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Right, that's a good time to go for a break then.
Well, I've just got one quick question,
Okay.
if that's all right. Well, you said about the orbs. Did they explain to you what the orbs are?
Okay, you can see them with your eye. You can see them inside your house. They will have like a small lighted center,
Yeah.
but sort of like plasma orbs.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I'm not talking about kicking up dust and taking photographs of it and calling it orb, or orbs up in the sky. I'm talking
real
about
ones.
orbs inside your home that you can see with your own two eyes.
Yeah. But did they explain what they are or what they do?
I don't think that I did have one ET I communicated with, Paul Hamden's Keek, and I asked Keek about that. And what Keek said was that they insert their consciousness into an orb so that they won't frighten us. They can come into our presence. Their intelligence comes, but we're not frightened because we're often frightened by their appearance.
Because, how they look. Wow. Thank you for that.
We've still got quite a few questions for the second half, so
yes. Yeah. So so we'll go for a 4-minute break. Give everyone time to chill and that. And there is a countdown towards the end.
Yeah, so you know to get back in your seat.
So you know to run back, because I did one before and I didn't put a countdown on it. It's like, we weren't quick enough. So so we'll have a 4-minute break and we'll carry on after that. So thank you everyone, and
see you shortly.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And
Hello.
we're back, but
Kathleen's disappeared.
yeah, we've it says device not connected.
It does. So whether she's having connection issues, I don't know.
Yeah, so give me 1 second. I'm just going to message her.
Yeah. So anyway, for those of you who weren't in right from the beginning, we have important news, and we are starting filming for a TV series on the paranormal for Amazon Prime on the 23rd of this month.
Yes.
So it's all very exciting. It's all kicking off, and we'll keep you up to date when we can let you. That's all we can tell you at the moment. But we've had to keep it under wraps for a couple of weeks, and it's kind of like, well, it's been killing Andy.
Yeah.
I'm quite patient with things like that, but Andy's been dying to tell everybody.
Well, I've not been down to tell everyone.
Yes, you have.
Shut up. No, I've not.
But it's all very exciting.
I've been wanting to tell people.
Yes.
Because if it wasn't for
She's
these
back.
people, then we wouldn't know. Right.
Yes.
Sorry, just bear with me a minute. Right.
And you're back.
Yes.
We thought we'd lost you. I was just emailing you.
I was surprised because I had just muted myself and taken myself off camera, and then I couldn't get back on. So fortunately, I was finally able to get back on. So sorry about that, everybody.
No, it's okay.
Right. So back to the questions.
Yeah.
One from Johnny here. Did Betty or Barney ever have any follow-up contact after the event?
They did. Betty always denied it.
Right.
Barney didn't really live long enough to be asked about that.
Yeah.
He had a massive cerebral hemorrhage, as I said earlier, when he was only 46 in 1969. But Betty had many contact experiences. She was contacted about once a year.
Yeah. Almost like they were checking up on her.
Yes. She just never made that public because she was receiving enough ridicule as it was.
Yeah.
You know, in that time frame, if you'd seen more than one UFO in your entire life, no one would believe it. So you're certainly not going to say, well, I've been abducted more than once, because they didn't believe you had been abducted even one time.
Yeah. That leads me on to a question. The amount of UFOs and things that are being seen now, and the amount of people that are coming forward saying that they've been abducted, why do you think the government are still covering it all up? We're becoming more accepting of the fact that there's probably something out there. So why are they not disclosing like they said they would?
The US government is releasing information a little bit at a time
Trips.
through its representatives, through scientists who work for the government, through the Defense Intelligence Agency, mostly. And different scientists have released information. In fact, Dr. Gary Nolan, who was doing research for the CIA, and it was on the Havana syndrome, ended up working on research on the brains of experiencers who were having MRIs. And what they found were spots in the brain that they thought was brain damage, and also an area of the brain right in here that they thought was brain damage. And then when they took a closer look at it, they realized it was a patch. And that patch gives experiencers certain gifts.
Right.
More spatial awareness, more intelligence, more psychic ability, that kind of thing.
Right.
So there are scientists who have worked for the government or people who have had high level positions in the government who are releasing quite a lot of information.
Yeah.
And, you know, they probably have permission to do this. Otherwise, they could face jail time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah,
for that.
Yeah, we are learning so much from you this
I know.
evening.
Great.
It's so fascinating. Thank
Yeah.
you. Really appreciate it. Right. Next question then. So this is from Stockholm Pearls and Views. Were Betty and Barney's clothes ever tested for alien DNA?
Betty's dress has been tested.
Yeah.
Barney's suit was just taken, and a shirt taken to the dry cleaners and cleaned immediately after they arrived home from the trip. But Betty discovered that her dress was torn.
Right.
And so she placed it in her closet. The next time she took it out, it was covered with a pink powdery substance. It was a blue dress. And so she took it out, she hung it on her clothesline, and the powder blew away. But she was going to throw the dress away because here it is torn and discolored now. But she decided to keep it because it might hold a clue to what happened that night or some evidence. And so it has been analyzed in many, many laboratories. There has been DNA evidence that I did a show, UFO Witness, with Ben Hansen on the Travel Channel. And if you watch that show, you'll see Betty's dress. We were at the University of New Hampshire, and we examined the dress together. We had a black light or a UV light, and we were looking for fluorescence on the dress. We turned it inside out, and we discovered a stain in the general area of Betty's navel.
Right.
And so we decided that we'd take a sample from that, and I sent it in for DNA testing. Now, what came back was the discovery that it was probably blood, but it was definitely fluid from Betty's body. And it was only on the inside of the lining. It did not transfer through to the dress itself.
Right.
So this is an indication that her memory of having a needle inserted into her navel is real. Other tests have given anomalous results, because we don't know what alien DNA looks like.
No.
I know of one case where the experiencer, I worked on this case, the experiencer ended up with DNA evidence that was DNA, it was similar, somewhat similar to a lizard in South America who has DNA the closest to human DNA.
Right.
And the scientist ended up writing in the report that this might be an indication that there are lizard-like humanoids.
Yeah, like the reptilians.
Yes. Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. That's on another case, not on Betty's dress. We've also found certain rare metals on Betty's dress that absolutely should not be there. Very expensive with a very high melting point.
Right.
And I've written about that in detail in Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience 60th Anniversary Edition. So some remarkable information, new information is being brought forth all the time on the star map, on the dress, on any findings, because I have never given up on this case. I've never stopped looking for scientific evidence that can be evaluated by PhD scientists.
Yeah. I suppose with all the technology that's being updated daily, it is going to be getting easier for you to get closer to what happened and why it happened.
Yes, I absolutely hope so. The only problem is that the dress is growing older and older. And so everything that is on it is breaking down. It's aging. You
have to vacuum pack it. Stop the air getting to it.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you for that.
Question from Ancient Ruby. Are you still in contact with them today? I'm
With-
assuming it means the aliens or
With the ETs,
ETs, yeah.
they were coming to me for a while, and I could feel them strongly
Yeah.
in their presence. I couldn't see them because they're higher dimensional.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes I could see them just like as shimmering.
Right, yeah.
It's like shimmering, like feel the strong tingling and maybe receive a telepathic message. But I have not had this occur in maybe four or five, maybe 4 months
Right.
now.
Right.
But I think that it's because I stopped meditating. I was busy doing things, traveling a lot during the summer to
Yeah.
work at conferences. And I got out of that routine of trying to connect with them.
Yes.
And so now I'm meditating every day to try to connect. I'm feeling a
Yeah.
little bit of tingling
Yeah.
in my crown chakra, which is something that happens when I'm able to connect with them.
Yeah.
Oh,
Excellent. Thank you.
yes.
I'm not being taken anymore, though.
Right.
No.
No, that council, Kevin Briggs is the name of the experiencer who has channeled the council to us.
Right.
And the council told us that they would protect us. Now, since they told me that, I've stopped being taken to craft.
Right.
And that has been 7 years.
Yeah.
Right. So it's been your choice not to be taken.
Yeah, I would prefer not to be taken to craft because of the accidents that can happen. I've had burns, I've had illness,
Yeah.
I've lost hair, things like that way back in the past. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I wouldn't want that. It's dangerous to be taken to
No.
craft. They can make mistakes.
Do you
Yeah.
think it's? Oh, I've lost what I was going to say. Then I'll come back to that when it comes back into my head. It's just popped straight out of my head. I was just about to ask a question.
Oh,
Oh, right. Well,
that was it. I've
go on.
remembered. Do you think it's true that when people say, like, most of us could have been abducted, it's just that there's only a few of us that remember?
I think that probably many more people have been taken than they realize.
Yeah.
And the reason that I suspect this is another speculation. I don't know if it's certain.
No.
But the ETs are seen dating back to the early 1950s. They were taking soil samples. They were taking plant samples. They were
Yeah.
seen on farms. Craft landed or was hovering above a field, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then they're seen taking animals from the woods and farm animals. And it, only followed logically that they would be taking humans. I think that there is a very large scale genetic study going on in the collection of DNA. I think that there are many scientists working on this, ET scientists, and that they're collecting all of this either to plant it on other planets, but also with their concern that we'll destroy this planet.
Yeah.
That if it went in the time when it would regenerate, if it would regenerate, they could plant it back here, all of that DNA.
Right. Thank you for that.
Yes. Right. Next question is from Umbraman. Where does Kathleen think that these beings come from? Or do you know where they come from?
I don't know. I know that many people I've read about the Arcturians and so on and so forth, coming from different star systems. I don't know if that's true. I don't even know for certain that the ETs that Betty and Barney had experience with, and then I did, come from Zeta Reticuli. It's only that Betty's star map matched Zeta Reticuli best, that star system.
Right.
So I can't say for certain. I think that many of them are higher dimensional entities No, they could be living on planets in various star systems, having higher dimensions. Many of them say that they used to live on a planet, but they mostly travel in space or live here now.
Yeah.
You know, they live underneath our oceans, for example, or deep
Yeah.
bodies of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, USOs.
Yeah.
US whatever. There's a name for the bases in there. I can't remember what that is, but yeah, there's been plenty of USOs seen, so there's got to be something going on under there.
Yes.
Yeah. And this, like, we know so much of the oceans and that have not been touched by man because we just can't get to it.
Yeah.
We're too deep to, I suppose, investigate.
Is that why we can't get to it? You just don't know.
Well,
Are we being
find
stopped
out.
from getting to it?
Yeah, that's another show.
Yeah. Right, the next question is from Umbraman, and it says, what does Kathleen think the most consistent way to initiate contact?
Well, the only way that I've ever been able to do it is by working with a person who is already in contact, such as Kevin Briggs.
Yeah.
So if you want to initiate contact for conversation, that's one way. There are other experiencers who can call in craft. I can't do that, but certain experiencers are capable of doing that. And if you're with them, then you could safely be in that presence and with that contact. Stephen Greer,
Yes.
I know, sells an app for your cell phone that you can, it's something like $10, and it has everything to have your own CE5 encounter.
Yeah.
I have it on my phone, but I haven't tried it yet. It's been there for a couple of years, but I never
I do that. Yeah. I've just got rid of a load of things like that today, ghost boxes and all sorts.
Yes.
That don't work.
No.
And, you know, so, but I have one warning to give, and that is don't go into this blindly and call in anyone who wants to come.
Yeah.
There's a member of MUFON's experiencer resource team who I brought into the team when I was the director. And he wanted very badly to have contact and was doing CE5 experiments. And then one night he and his wife went to bed, and the wall opened up in the bedroom. And this man is a top-notch investigator. I mean, he was able to observe precisely what happened and to describe it in detail. But the wall opened up. He saw blue light, and then he saw entities, non-humans, coming. They were small grays. They stepped out of that into his bedroom, and they hooked hoses up to his body and did something. And at that point, he was absolutely terrified.
I'm not surprised.
Wishing that he hadn't called them in. So that happened. And, you know, it was before he knew that he should be careful about what he asks for.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that it's a higher vibrating entity that comes. You don't want the lower vibrational ones to come in, such as what happened with the man in Texas that I talked about.
Yeah.
Now, he probably had some higher vibrating entities, but he attracted the lower ones as well. And some people that I've talked to, have worked with, have called in whatever would come and ended up with draconian reptilians too.
Yes.
You know, just not good experiences.
No. And they're the ones that are really not bothered about humans, from what I've heard either.
Right, they are. So, and protect yourself. Fill yourself. I believe in meditating, asking for divine light to come through your crown chakra, down through the chakras in your body, rooting yourself to earth, and putting a protective bubble of divine light around yourself before you do anything.
That's what you should do with any spiritual work that you do, really. So
yes.
It's just the same, and it's just the same sort of protection.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you for that.
yeah, just protecting yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, because when I go out investigating, I always have obsidian. I always carry some obsidian with me. I know
Mhm.
it's not always going to work, but at least there's something there. Something's better than nothing.
Mhm. That's a
Definitely.
good idea. I keep that next to my bed.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got
I've got
about.
crystals everywhere.
I've probably got about 30 crystals. I've got some in the car. They're just everywhere, everywhere that I need them. So the only thing though, I keep forgetting to cleanse them.
Yes, I put mine out full moon.
Yeah,
I think we do a full moon actually because it was looking pretty big tonight until it moved higher up in the sky.
I think 2 days.
Ooh,
I think it's Sunday we get the full moon.
get them outside then. Don't matter if they rain on some of them. You just got
I
to
need
check
to
which
collect
one.
them all.
Yeah, I'll take you half a day. Right.
You're not kidding.
Next question is from Rick Allen. How many different types of entities does Kathleen believe exist?
I think that there are several basic types, the gray types, but they come in 3 distinct sizes. The grays also come in different colors. Then there is the insectoids, and they come, it could be ant people, it could be mantis people, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Then there are the reptilians. So they come in different types as well. Some of them are not so bad. It was a reptilian that healed a woman that I worked with, who ended up with the reptilian DNA.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty nice. But then you have the draconian reptilians that are just really, they behave like lower vibrating interdimensionals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have the human types. And there are various, types of humans. There are ones with blonde hair. There are others with dark hair, various colors of skin, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They look a little bit different than we do. Let me think. Is there another type that I have forgotten?
I'm just trying to think, but I don't think there is. I think you've covered.
Yeah. But, you could end up counting all of them separately as different types and come up with, some people have come up with 56 or 100 or even more than 100, but just you're counting every little difference in appearance as a new type of entity. I don't do that.
No. I know that some people have said, like the greys, that they look grey, but some of them have been seen as like a pale pink or white or
or even tan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny. Yes. Anyway, Andy, next question.
Yep, next question is from Nickname, and she wants to know, wasn't there UFO sightings in the area around the time before Betty and Barney's event? What other witnesses have come forward? Do you know?
There were UFO sightings in that time frame, particularly after Betty and Barney's experience. But the newspaper reporter from the Boston Traveler who broke their story because he had talked to a woman who Betty had confided in, and she told him everything.
Yeah.
But he was able to find, at the time of writing the newspaper articles, 6 witnesses to the craft that Betty and Barney saw in that time frame on that night. And they were not together. They were in different locations. But what he did is he took the various locations and he knew where the craft was at a particular time, according to what Betty and Barney had told their friend. And he just drew lines, and it was the same craft that Betty and Barney saw. He was able to find more than that after, because he said he found at least a dozen witnesses. Then I've spoken to a man who was in the military.
Yeah.
He was in the Navy, and he was stationed in Maine. And he and a friend were off on leave that night, going to visit the other man's girlfriend, and they were driving back to the base when they saw the craft going in the direction where Betty and Barney were taken.
Right.
So they
Ah.
think that they could very well have seen this craft that took Betty and Barney.
Wow.
Also, there were 2 radar reports that night. One earlier in the evening, a very large object that was moving erratically against the wind.
Right.
And then the Air Force wrote that off as a weather balloon. I've never seen a weather balloon travel against the wind.
No.
And then the other was a radar sighting at Pease Air Force Base in Newington, New Hampshire, which is just right next to Portsmouth, where Betty and Barney lived. That was the nuclear base. So yeah, that was at 2:14 a.m.
Right.
I've never actually asked you. I mean, I can't remember. What was the craft like that they were taken on? Was it a typical saucer or triangle or?
It was a saucer-shaped craft. It had windows,
Yeah.
rectangular windows. So Betty and Barney saw blue, bright, white, bluish white light shining through.
Yeah.
There was a red light on each side of it. And you see sides, well, maybe there was one in the back too, I don't know, but they didn't see one in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was rotating when it came in close, but then it stopped rotating as it came down to hover over their vehicle.
Right.
And that's what caused Barney to have to stop the car in the middle of the road.
Because didn't it come down and go past them and then come back round at a lower level? Am I getting confused?
No, I think you're a bit confused. When it swooped down next to their vehicle, well, they were in, say, this is the car, they were in the highway. So
Yeah.
let me do this. This is, I'm getting confused.
Right.
All right. So say this is the car.
Yeah.
And this is the craft. The
Yeah.
craft was to the side of the car. Okay,
Right.
so Barney had to pull the car directly into the center of the highway so he wouldn't be underneath the craft. He
Right.
got out of the car with his binoculars, resting his elbows on the car roof,
Yeah.
looking up at the craft as it's hovering overhead, about 100 feet overhead. And he stepped back. And when he did, it moved sort of in an arc-like motion
Right.
to
Yeah.
an adjacent field. It was just slightly to the east, which was Barney's left.
Right.
Yeah.
And he walked to the edge of that field and it descended lower. And that's when he saw the non-humans on the craft.
Yeah.
He's looking through his binoculars in the field. And this is when they move, the red lights start to come out on little fin-like structures. He becomes terrified that he's going to be captured when something starts to drop down out of the bottom of the craft. We know what that something is today. He didn't know what it was, but it's just a beam. It could be blue-green, it could be a purplish blue, but it's generally a bluish color.
Yeah.
And that is the beam that when it hits you, the ETs descend on it, generally 3.
Lift you up.
They take you up to the hovering craft if you're on the ground.
Yeah.
I've read so many UFO encounters and abductions. It's like sometimes they take the car and other times they leave the car, they put you back where the car is. I don't understand why they do it like that, why they just don't leave the car or take the car. Why do they sometimes do it and sometimes not? It's just, and I don't think it depends on the size. It doesn't depend on the size of the craft either, because some of the accounts that I've read, the crafts have looked quite small because the people have been quite astounded that the car's actually fitted into the craft.
Yeah.
But they've not actually seen it on the craft while they've been on there. It's just, it's something I can't get my head around. It fascinates me.
Yes, it perplexes me because for one thing, those craft can change in size.
Yes.
They can be very small but you can be taken to it and it seems extraordinarily large.
Yeah.
So there's something going on affecting our physics,
Yeah.
our perception of reality. What
Yeah.
is it? I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't
Like
think
Doctor
anybody
Who's
does.
TARDIS, isn't it? You walk into a tiny little police box and it's just
Yeah.
huge inside, like a warehouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and, maybe they always take the car, but they then put the car down first.
Yeah.
And so you think that they haven't taken it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who knows? But
We
maybe
don't-
just
we
the
just-
opposite is true. I don't
Yeah.
know.
So
We
do you
just
think
don't
they,
know.
so do you think they'd be doing tests on the vehicle as well? Or
Do
they just
something to
move?
the vehicle?
Yeah. Or
Mm,
do you think they're just moving it so that no one going past gets suspicious about what's going on?
I think that's the case.
I think that's probably the case
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Maybe they've had a case where somebody's car was towed. They didn't know
Yeah.
it.
It's
Yeah.
like there's just a car there with nobody inside it.
Doors
just in the
open,
middle-
lights on. Yeah.
in the middle of the
Mhm.
highway or road or whatever. And it's
Right.
like, yeah, we'll move this.
Yeah.
And they've come to bring him back. It's like, oh,
So
they've no car.
it would be pretty
Yeah.
logical for them to take the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. We've got another question from Nickname. What subsequent abduction case helped validate their own experience? I think she means Betty and Barney's own experience, maybe.
Yeah. What subsequent abduction case? It wasn't an abduction case that validated their experience. It was their memories.
Right.
It was the evidence. There was quite a lot of evidence, and it's all in captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO experience.
Yep.
So there were cases after them that, and Betty oftentimes was called in to work with the experiencers because
Yeah.
not only was she a social worker, she had herself been taken.
Yeah.
And so she could help many people. Alan Hynek and Dr. James Harder would ask her to work with people like Travis Walton, like
Yeah.
Charlie Hickson and Calvin Parker,
Yes.
like 3
Yeah.
women in Kentucky who were taken in the early 1970s. So Betty worked with a lot of experiencers to help them
Yeah.
to be able to integrate that information and overcome their fear, to
Right.
give them understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, with her being trained in that field of work, it make it a lot easier for her as well, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Next question is from Rick Allen. He'd like to know, what have you gleaned about the aliens themselves?
I think that a lot of them are sentient beings. I think they're alive. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people who disagree with me, but with all of the experiencers that I've worked with and from my own personal experiences, if they are biomechanical, it's impossible for me to tell. I've had psychics look at photographs that I've been able to collect of the ETs, and these psychics can see auras, and they can tell me, this is a sentient being, I can see an aura. This one is not. This one is robotic. There's no aura there. So I believe that is true. But again, I have to say speculation. I'm not certain. I suspect that the little grays, the ones who are about 3.5 feet tall, who are the guards on board, who just are the assistants, they're the ones who make all the mistakes. I don't think that they're sentient beings. I could be wrong, but they stand against the wall, and they don't move or do anything unless they're instructed to.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people say that they're cloned.
Mhm.
The small greys.
Yes, people say that. Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that?
I don't know.
No.
I just don't know.
Right. No, I just thought I'd ask.
Mhm.
No, thank you. Right, next question is from Umbraman. He'd like to know, Who does Kathleen consider the most trustworthy source of information on the phenomena?
I think I'm one of them.
I was going to say, is
I've
it
done
yourself?
a tremendous amount, not only working with experiencers, but archival research. I've written 6 books. I've lived with this for most of my life.
Yeah.
You know, so I've taken a very deep dive into this using scientific principles in the work that I've done. There are many people, others that I think are fascinating with their information. I mentioned Gary Nolan for one,
Yeah.
Lou Elizondo for another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that they have some very good information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could I just ask one question before we move on to the others? Is there anyone in particular that you'd love to work with that you haven't already?
Jacques Vallée.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Jacques Vallée. He came to my house when I was a teenager doing
Yeah.
an experiment with my Aunt Betty
Yeah.
and my Uncle Barney. I met him many years later when I was presenting at a conference in California, and he was also presenting there. We had a meal together, and it was great
Yeah.
to see him again. But
Yeah.
you know, somebody asked who I respected most in the field. Jacques Vallée. He has done a tremendous amount of research. He's extraordinarily bright, and I trust most of what he says.
Yeah.
And I agree with him.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Next question is from Joe Weeks. What do you think they want from us, the ETs?
I think that different ETs want different things. In terms of those who are the takers, they're no longer able to reproduce. They need to use our DNA for their own purposes in order to reproduce offspring. Some of them are attempting to make a more survivable species, combining themselves with us. So a lot of humans don't like that. And then, as I said earlier, there are others who are here. They just come back from time to time to assist in our development and are very concerned about the place that we are on our planet in this time frame right now with our huge environmental problems and nuclear weapons.
Yeah. Thank you. Next one is from Ancient Ruby. She's saying, does Kathleen realise that they will come back when one has stopped talking?
I don't understand the question.
So what she's saying is that once you stop talking publicly about all this, that she believes that they'll come back and revisit you. I'm guessing that's what she means.
I've been visited when I was talking about this. So it wasn't that they left because I was talking. It's that the ones who were taking me to craft stopped doing it because the Council of 8 said that they would protect me. And also one of the other researchers, no, actually 2 of the other researchers who were experiencers as well, stopped being taken to craft by those entities that were taking them. And when the council said they were protecting them. So I don't know what they've done, but we haven't been taken. I wouldn't mind going back, once in a while if I could ask questions and receive more answers. I did receive some answers from the entities on the craft.
So with the questions that you asked, I'm not going to ask you what you asked them, but did they give you a direct reply to what you asked, or did they swerve the question?
Well, it's very difficult to communicate with them because I would, think, well, why this? And so there would just be a response. Like
Right.
if I'm lying there terrified, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
And I'm tingling all over and I'm confused, and they project love toward me.
Right.
So that's an answer.
Yeah.
You're here. We love you. Your family to us, that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's more. Yeah. It's like a physical emotion, I suppose.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing, but it's projected by them. It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the way we interact with our family members, and we know that we love each other because we're hugging and kissing and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. This is energy projected toward
Yeah.
the human. At least that's the way it happened with me.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, have you considered that this might be deceptive, that they're just doing this? And yeah, I've considered that. And I say, if they are, at least they're making me feel better.
Yeah.
I'm not
Oh,
frightened. I don't have a choice here.
Yeah. Yeah. At least calming your nerves a little bit.
Yeah. Right. Another question from Sharon. Have you ever worked on a case where a hybrid embryo and subsequent child have been involved?
Not on a case. I've worked on cases where the DNA was extracted through the navel, just like with my Aunt Betty.
Yeah.
I've worked on cases where sperm has been extracted,
Yeah.
but those experiencers didn't remember actually seeing hybrid children.
Right.
I've worked on cases where people have seen children, where people have seen the gestational tanks, but to put all of those pieces together in succession, I think only one case that I can think of.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Last question, Mr. Andrew.
Yes, it is from Rick Allen. Does Kathleen believe there is a connection between ETs and cryptids?
Maybe Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Because Bigfoot is seen so frequently near landed craft or hovering craft. And many researchers that I've talked to have told me they believe that Bigfoot is interdimensional and might be part of all of that phenomena as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Super.
David, you got any more questions?
I'm going to have a little look at my list because I think we've covered. Yeah. No, we've covered everything I've got on my list. I haven't even had a chance to ask my questions because everybody's asked them.
I know. Yeah. So going back to with the cryptids, have you ever had any cryptid experiences or encounters?
I have not.
No. Okay. No, I just thought I'd ask while that question was there.
Thank goodness. I don't want to complicate this any further.
No.
Just stick to one subject.
No, I just thought I'd ask for asking sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think then we've covered everything.
Yeah, we have. That's been absolutely lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. That's been great.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk with you and to answer so many questions. And I just want to tell everyone that if you're interested in where I'll be speaking or in reading any of the free articles on my website, it's Kathleen-Marden, MARDEN.com.
Yeah.
And you can see me do a show on Discovery Plus on Betty and the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. I've done many of those shows, but I had a major role in one fairly recently, and also on the Travel Channel and on Ancient Aliens as well.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Super.
Excellent. Yeah, like I said, if you've got any links that you would like me to share, if you want to email them over to me, and I'll add them in the description.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then Yeah, you can
Books,
get them sent
anything?
out, and yeah, and then with your new book as well, if you want to advertise that. If you want to send me a link to that as well, I'll put that on there.
Okay, it's available on Amazon.
All right,
Brilliant.
excellent. Right. Well, that's it then.
Yes,
So
Okay.
thank you so much. And
And
we'll
thank
let you go now then if you want, because you said you've got company, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
well, you can have an early finish.
Yeah, we'll let you go home 10 minutes early.
Okay, take
So
care.
yeah, we'll finish off, and then
Yeah.
you can go
Bye-bye.
and do what you need to do. Right. And she's
Okay
gone.
then.
Yeah. No, she said she had company, and yeah, so it was good to get it finished early.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was that. No, that was great.
Yes, I
Absolutely.
really enjoyed that.
Learned so much from that. It's just because she's like first-hand experiencer,
Yeah.
and with her uncle and aunt are, it's just so much more authentic, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's somebody that's close to.
And then with what had gone on, she then decided that she's going to investigate that further.
Yeah.
And do that full time, pretty much
Yeah.
for the rest of her life.
I know.
So
Dedication.
yes.
Yes. Pays off in the end.
Roy Castle.
Don't go there.
Oh, he was all right.
No.
Was he not? Oh.
No. Not in that kind of way.
Oh. No, he played trumpet.
Yeah, he did. Then he got lung cancer and blamed everybody for smoking in clubs that he played his trumpet in. So that doesn't sit right with me.
We'll move on from that.
Yeah, let's leave that there.
Yeah, so back to Kathleen. Absolutely amazing.
Yes.
I loved it.
Really enjoyed that.
So, yeah.
Again, I was forgetting to change my banners over. So
Oh, I wasn't even looking at them.
I get absorbed in it, and that's it.
It's just because I've listened to these encounters so many times. I know I got a little bit confused with the where the UFO was moving, but I remember it arching. I thought it went past once, come round, and then come back.
Right.
Because then I was going to say that's when he got his binoculars out and was watching it. But I forgot that was when it landed.
Yeah.
So,
it was only when I asked the question about what the craft looked like. I remember that I'd seen a pencil drawing of it. So I could see it as I'd asked the question, I could actually see what the craft looked like. So.
As you said it, yeah.
Yeah. But I've seen that much stuff about it. It all gets tangled up who belongs to what. But yeah,
because when you're reading or listening to similar encounters, it's so easy for it all to get entwined into one.
Yeah, it is.
So, right, you got 6.5 minutes, Deb. You gonna do a little dance? There we go.
Superstars.
Oh, you've got to get it. Where is it?
Well, oh no! Who asked the top question?
Me.
Best
I think
question.
I should have it.
About what? Do you think who?
Me.
Okay.
For putting up with you for so long.
I'll bring it when we meet up at filming. I'll bring it with me. Can have it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
I'll stick it down your aerial hole on the car.
I've vlogged it. Right, Deborah.
Hello.
I have no idea.
She knows.
But you can't. So we have a guest host on Wednesday, which you're not allowed to talk about.
Yes, we have.
So
Friday, I'm afraid I'm not here because I'm at a funeral. But we have Natalie Zett on.
Yes.
And all being well, if he gets in touch with Andy.
Well,
Eric Von Essex shall be my stand-in.
Yes.
Our Chris. So
twins.
If you're listening, Chris. Twins, that's
it. He was in the chat before.
I know, he might have fallen asleep now, though. It's a bit late for him. He's getting on a bit.
He's had his cocoa.
Yeah, he's had his cocoa. He's got his slipper on. Yeah. We will in a winky nightcap.
Yeah. So next Friday and the Friday after, they're the last two at 8:00.
Yes.
We are on Wednesday at 7:30. So it'll be me, Deb, and a surprise guest host. It's somebody that we've had on as a guest in the past.
Yes.
We'll be doing a thing called a para table.
Paratable.
Yes, so
Paratable.
it's basically like Paranormal Round Table, but
It is,
other
yeah, but
people
not.
use that, so I've had to change it to Paratable.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's 7:30, and it'll be Q&A, and we'll be asking each other questions, and that's it.
So Sharon's wanting to know details on your TV adventure. Please, where are you filming first? We are actually only in one location.
Yes. Up north.
Up north, other side of the country.
I can say it's up north.
Yeah.
We can't disclose location. But
Yes.
apparently I'm filming first.
Yeah, only because you need to go home and get to bed.
Yeah, because it's about a 38-hour drive.
Yeah. I do.
No, it's not too bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're getting pizza and Haribo. Woohoo.
Only because you asked for that.
Well, he did say.
I said I was quite happy with Greg's sausage rolls and a large cappuccino. But then you had to come in with your, I'll have cheese and tomato pizza.
Yeah. Because I don't like ham or flat cheese. So don't ask. Don't ask.
He said, I don't eat cheese or ham. And then said, I'll have cheese and tomato pizza. I'm like, how does that work?
I like melted cheese. I don't like it when it's just cut.
Oh, no, I can eat cheese. No.
There's different types of cheese that I like in different ways. Don't ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just put a list together and hand it to me. It's fine.
So cheddar cheese melted, Wensleydale or Cheshire
Ooh,
cut on bread with ketchup or jalapenos or whatever. Halloumi grilled or fried.
Oh, yeah.
Feta just straight out with a spoon.
Packet. Straight out the packet. I was eating some of that today, but I got the cheese sweat. I had to put it back in the fridge.
Yeah, it's a bit salty though, isn't it, feta?
It is, but creamy.
Yeah. I've actually got feta and halloumi. Might just have a cheese fest on me tomorrow. Right. I think we should go.
See, Lottie, she loves a cheese. She likes cheesy peas.
There you go.
Cheesy peas.
Yeah. All right, Paul.
It's all going completely pink.
So Wednesday, 7:30.
With our surprise guest.
Friday, 8 o'clock.
Natalie Zett. I'm not here.
The following week, we have
it's
Dan Baldwin and George Sewell.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Then we have the Halloween special where there should be 5 of us. All being well.
Yes.
1,
all being
2.
Well.
Yeah. And then on the 4th of November,
yeah.
We're going to be doing a backtrack about everything that we've done and then everything we've got coming up moving forward. And hopefully we'll be able to talk about some of the filming that we've done.
Yeah.
I still can't believe it. It's so surreal and it's like my head's just battered with it. I can't, it won't
sink in. Yeah.
I'm there driving around in my van today thinking about it. It's like, I'm driving around in my van, then going to do some filming, and the day after I'm going to be back driving around in my van again.
Yeah. But this time people will be waving at you and asking you to pull over for autographs.
No, they're just police.
Yeah. Fine here, mate. You've got to find.
For doing 21 in the 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's great. So thank you again for Kathleen for coming on. Thank you everyone in the chat for keeping it clean and respectful.
And thank you for all your support as well.
Yes, all your questions, everything. So grateful for all your comments and well wishes and everything else. Like we said, the Facebook group is closing.
Yes.
But it's going to be archived. It's just we've got so much going on. It's too much for us to keep on top of. So, but what you can do now, stop cloaking.
I tried it earlier and my shoulder disappeared. It just looked weird, so I didn't do it again.
So our Facebook accounts, our personal ones, are now public.
So get sharing.
So anything we post on there, you can share. If you want to post anything on there, like you would in the group, well, as long as it's related to what we do, then share away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just treat it like the page.
Yes.
And that's going to be closed in
At the end of
1, 2,
October.
3 weeks, 3 days.
Yes.
So right, we're gonna go because it is bang on 2 hours. So
It is.
massive thank you yet again to you all. And I'm going to play this instead of the normal one. So have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Wednesday, 7:30.
Yay.
If you're not, Deb will come round and shoot you.
Yeah, and you won't
Or
be getting
fight.
one of these.
I'll fight you in the street with a slipper
fight.
around the back of the head.
My slipper of doom.
Yeah, so have a great weekend. See you
Thanks,
then.
everybody. Good night.
Ha 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 ha.